I think it's safe to say that AI panic is having a moment, animating the apocalyptic imagination like nothing since Oppenheimer's atomic bomb. And having spent the last 2 decades teaching, I speak from experience when I tell you that artificial intelligence is freaking out many of the students I have long referred to as Generation WTF. It's all good. It's a term of endearment and affection. It stands for Generation What's the Future? Because they are. And I dedicate this talk to them.
I would define AI as artificial intelligence that is made to help human beings in any way, shape, or form.
A little too convenient.
A computer program that can answer anything.
The best thing that ever happened to me.
Computer mind, I don't know.
I would say that AI is a high-tech intelligence that is used to help assist people.
I think it's a new way of life.
It does all the hard work. Shoot, we don't do nothing. And yeah, shout out to AI.
Basically like a computer simulating answers for you, so you don't necessarily have to think about it.
I think the ethics side for me that I first off, I should tell you, I really like a lot of the new generative AI stuff that's coming out. But the ethical concern I have is when people make a choice without realizing they're making a choice. And your phone's about to get a whole lot smarter. Apple in probably about January, February, and if you have Android, it's happening right now. And it's great. This new tool will do things for us that are just incredibly time-saving and smart. Again, to use some of that language. But we're also making some choices when we start using that. An enormous amount of our students, and those of you that aren't students at Coastal that are visitors, I'm so glad that you're here. I'll tell you, an enormous number of our students are using this new technology to do their classwork, to write their papers, to draft them at the very least. And I get phone calls almost every day from a faculty member. I had one yesterday, and she said at the bottom of their paper it says, "I am an LLM, and some of the results may not be accurate." And what are they trying to tell me? And I said, what they're telling you is they copied and pasted without, checking the last little piece. And so my concern is not as much about us creating a monster as it is making choices that we don't know what choices we're actually making.
So my name is Dr. Wes Fondren. I'm the Associate Dean of the College of Graduate and Continuing Studies here at Coastal, also an Associate Professor of Communication, Media, and Culture. Artificial intelligence is simply a simulation of the human brain. Like, it makes computers look like they're thinking the way we are. Most of the time, though, today when people say AI to me, what they mean is generative AI, because we've had artificial intelligence around for a really long time. What they usually mean is the version that's brand new, that's arrived in the last year or so. And generative AI is artificial intelligence that's used to create content and generate content. And one of the problems that we all have right now is that language fails us. Like, the computer's not really thinking and it's not really creating, it's rearranging and recompiling. And so, but short definition, it's a computer simulation of a human brain, really big one. And generative AI is AI that's used to create. I require my students to use AI, and part of this is my belief that we're training them not only for what we know, what they need to be doing now, but when they leave the classroom. We teach them how to write, or we teach them how to do math or other skills that we teach them. We're teaching them to use this in their career. I believe that AI will be deeply embedded in what my students will be doing as part of their career. And so I'm requiring my students to use AI. For example, today I gave an assignment in class called Dr. U. And what they have to do is they have to log into one of the versions of AI that I mentioned a moment ago. They have to have it write a paper on a theory of their choice that we've covered in class. They have to copy and paste that paper that it writes into a Word document, and then they have to grade it. And any errors that they don't catch get counted against them. And so they grade the paper like I would, and then I look at their grading, and if I see mistakes they missed, then I just count off points for that. And it gets them to a higher level of learning because they're evaluating, and they become the teacher in some regards.
Sometimes for assignments we have to think of like creative names, titles for something, whether it's in like a marketing class. And if my creative juices are running out, I will type in like, what's a good title for blah, blah, blah.
The only one I really have ever used was like Snapchat AI, and that's like relatively new. I don't know who made it up. I don't know if it's biased or what, but
I typically don't use AI very much. Recently, I had to use ChatGPT or TP, whichever one it is, for an assignment for theater, which was, we were supposed to use ChatGPT, but other than that, I typically don't use it. It was supposed to write an entire script for us, and like that's what our teacher wanted, so it did make things easy.
So one of the marvelous aspects about generative AI and AI that we're talking about here is that it has a much larger network of concepts and connections than my brain could ever have. And so it's wonderful for brainstorming, for considering options that I never would have thought of, coming up with multiple versions of options. And so let's say that I wanted to teach a complicated concept in class. I could ask it, give me 10 different suggestions of how to teach this concept, and it will do it in an instant. And so it's great for triggering thinking, brainstorming, thinking outside the box, analyzing concepts. It has some real pros, and this is what the business world is very much interested in. It also is a time saver. Like if I wanted to write a letter recommending somebody, I could say, imagine you are an associate dean at a university, write a letter of recommendation for XXX with these 3 characteristics, and it will draft a letter for me that I can go edit and change. And so it's really helpful in drafting.
My daughter teaches chemistry up at Temple University, and she asked ChatGPT a question that she normally gives to her students near the beginning of school. And it came back and she goes, okay, here's ChatGPT's answer for the question. Highlight everything that's wrong. Half the page was in yellow. Okay? Because it's that much wrong information came out of it. But statistically, it had the correct word and it sounded good. May not have necessarily been correct, but it sounded good. And that's what ChatGPT, Bard, and all of these others do.
I think it makes things a little too easy sometimes. Like, I feel like when you try to use it for long-term, like big essays or papers and stuff, it kind of diminishes the point of writing an essay when you have to use that, or when people do use that. So I think it just devalues the amount of work you actually put into it.
students not thinking on their own and just asking AI like direct questions and not really thinking about it themselves.
I think that it helps people refine their ideas, but I think that it can also be harmful if we let it overtake our own ideas.
It can help, but you can't really gain the same knowledge.
The mere fact of its exponentiality means there's not much we're going to be able to prepare them for technically. Mm-hmm. So I, as the philosopher, think I need to prepare them critically, humanistically, philosophically, and here's a $1 billion philosophy word, phenomenologically. And what is their experience with tech going to be like? And I do want to say this, though I applaud and the realism of my colleagues in saying our students are going to use this, we've got to get ahead of this, the draconian technique of no, it's not generally a good plan. 20 years ago, there were conversations about this with respect to using Google at all. And Google increased plagiarism a lot. Like, yes, this stuff happens. We have to adapt. I agree. But I do try to caution my students and I would take the opportunity to caution students here that this should be a clarion call for you to ask why you're here. What is the point of this? I understand I've been a student before. There are plenty of times when you just need to get the assignment done. But if your approach to your education, your approach to your job later on in your life is, I just need to get this done, you're gonna miss out on a lot. And I do believe tech will make you irrelevant.
Like so many other technologies that we become reliant on, I believe one of the real dangers is it will become an over-reliance on it, where students, workers, other people will just quickly crank out a paper or a draft and then just go with that draft. I also think there's a real problem with the fact that these are all owned by companies. So every AI that I've mentioned, every AI that we have access to easily right now, it's owned by a company. Google owns one, OpenAI owns one, Amazon has invested in Anthropomorphic several $billion. That opens up a number of concerns that so often people say, when you get a product for free, that means you're the product.
So like if AIs are like coded by people, if an Amish dude like wrote like a whole report on cars, like I probably wouldn't trust his opinion.
Yeah, that's valid.
Yeah. So I think it's dangerous, like who's like giving the information to feed into an AI. I think that's dangerous.
Where is the AI getting information from? You know what I mean? Like, what is the brain of it?
All of the AI models that I've been talking about of recent, generative AIs, sit on top of something called a large language model, meaning they've taken massive amounts of words, like trillions of interactions, fed them into these servers and had it learn, so to speak, from all these interactions. And our content is what they've learned from. And so I think someone would have to believe that the internet didn't have biases to believe that AI doesn't. And I don't know that that's a common view. And so I do believe that there are biases built in there. And as it gets used, bias will be developed even more, because AI also learns from interaction. And so it's not just that it was pre-trained, which is what the P stands for in ChatGPT. It's not just that it has a training period, it also learns from the interactions with the millions of people that are using it every day. And so you have biased content and you have biased users that are part of the training of this system. And so it would almost be miraculous if it somehow didn't have bias. And they're owned by companies. This is, companies have bias built into them. So
I definitely agree that there's biases because AI does not have emotions, and so it cannot understand what humans understand, and so a lot of times there is bias against what humans believe and their characteristics.
I think if it gave more responses, if you were to ask, do you believe in God, instead of it putting the answer back on me, like, I asked this last night, do you believe in God? And they basically were like, well, if you believe in God, then that's okay. I think it should give straight answers to be like, I can't answer the question right now, or I don't have a say in this, I don't have any information or knowledge on this topic. I think that would be a better way of handling any type of question that's regarding societal like standards or issues or religious matters in that way.
So like to have bias, you have to have an opinion, and then like, does AI have an opinion? And then like, goes back to what I'm saying, it's dangerous, because if AI has an opinion, then what if its opinion is to take over the world?
So if I could summarize what I hope people think about AI at this moment, it would be in two words that I hear people use all the time, and that is cautiously optimistic. I do believe there are a lot of cautions, just like with any new technology. When the printing press was invented, when television arrived, when radio came on the scene, we had concerns and we built in some limitations, and even the government stepped in to create some boundaries to make sure that these new technologies weren't abused or did damage. But I do believe there is substantial evidence for remarkable optimism. And one of the reasons we're seeing so many organizations invest so much money is because there's a lot of promise in generative AI. To double check a physician when they're asking questions, and generative AI can say, did you want to ask about these things? Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. And to be able to double check us. For example, graduate students, one of the things that we're working with right now is helping graduate students who have enormous workloads between their job and school and family, learning how to use this tool to ease some of those burdens and save time in tasks that they don't need to necessarily be doing over and over and over again. So there's an enormous amount of promise, but I do think cautious optimism, guarded excitement, however you wanted to word it, I think we're headed for some very exciting, very revolutionary uses for AI, but we do need to be cautious in how we embrace it.
I don't have all the answers. I have lots and lots of questions, but above all, I have hope. Hope that when I'm a relic surrounded by my children and my children's children, I can tell them in this moment we stopped the clock, remembered why we're here, who we are, and left this world a better place for all of us who call this pale blue dot our home.